So, after weeks of school hell, I finally managed to finish Eleanor and Park. I actually started reading the novel probably a month ago when Sila recommended me this ebook application where you can download a lot of contemporary novels, even old novels such as Hunger Games, Divergent. After she recommended that to me and I found Eleanor Park, I thought, wait, I recognize this. When I checked it out, oh my god, it's Eleanor and Park. It's actually not a very famous, but it is somehow well known for the young adults audience. So when I saw that book, I was supposed to read Dangerous Girls, which is another contemporary novel, but I kind of didn't like suspense thriller genres at that time, so I stuck with Eleanor and Park, which is a young adult romance. So I started reading it, and at first I thought, okay, this is a puppy love kind of thing. It's not the usual young adult books nowadays, which incorporates a lot of mature scenes, kissing and sexual stuff. When I read about it for the first time, I thought, this is cute. Eleanor and Park is written by Rainbow Rowell. Rowell. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, but yeah, it's written by Rainbow. It is set in Omaha, Nebraska, which is, I think, in Alaska. I'm not sure though. It's actually about two teenagers who struggle with, racism and body image. Typical young adolescent problems. They met each other on a bus ride, which is kind of a very common thing. This is where realism comes in. Everything that happened in the novel was all real things. It could happen, and it could very much be happening right now to, normal people. So they met in a bus ride wherein Eleanor had to sit somewhere, obviously. She didn't really know a lot of people there, and she definitely didn't know Park. When she was looking for a seat, nobody was actually giving up something for her. As she walked down the aisle, Park noticed her, and Park was contemplating if he would let her sit, because God forbid, as the unwritten social code says, once you choose a seat, you'll be stuck with it forever. So he was having a dilemma if he was actually willing to let Eleanor sit there forever beside him. He thought she was weird as hell because of her odd appearance and her unusual choice of clothes. He was having second thoughts if he would let this weird girl sit beside him for the rest of the year. And well, he eventually did, just because he thought it was empathy. So Eleanor's family was a real mess, to be honest. Eleanor had a very abusive stepfather, and her mother was completely unreliable. She was like a lapdog, a real life slave to Eleanor's stepfather. She has 4 siblings, which she always has to protect because of her unfortunate family background, and her financial status in life is already worse, to be honest. Park's family had regular things in life. A decent car, a good house with a garage, stable jobs. Park's family was the epitome of this perfect household that we all have in mind, and Eleanor's was the complete opposite of that. They both came from very different roads in life, and I guess that also played into the ending that they got. They were very different people, but they shared a lot of very similar things. Park had a good taste in music, in books, in mixtapes, comic books, and that's how he bonded with Eleanor. Eleanor was the type of girl that you would see in a party and, just sit there in the corner, not doing anything, but just listening to music. She would rather, read comic books all day long instead of interacting with people. And that's the similarity that they had, that she has with Park. Park wasn't very much of a loner. He had a best friend, but as half Asian, he still had his share of racism and discrimination and bullying. But I guess that's how he interacted or empathized with Eleanor, because Eleanor was experiencing much worse things than him, but they still relate to each other. And during their bus rides together, since Eleanor is already stuck in that same bus seat, they have to, tolerate each other's existence. Park would give Eleanor comic books or mixtapes or book recommendations. That's how they bonded. That's how they became friends and eventually became lovers. The story build-up and the character development was equally just right for me, in my opinion at least, because as the story progressed, the characters were also being developed, and that's where the most common mistake writers make is they want to make the story longer. They want to make the memories, the moments last, and that's why they tend to stretch the plot, which in result makes the story boring or repetitive. Like, why is this going so slow? What is happening? In Eleanor and Park, I didn't feel anything like that. I thought the story was happening in real time. The plot was... I didn't expect that it would have a sad ending. Everything seemed so good. When I was midway in the book, I didn't expect the turn of events that the plot had in the whole story. I was just so caught up in the moments, in the happenings. The story had a really sad ending, which kids nowadays like, because a lot of young adults now are more into melancholic and heartbreaking points of life because they can relate to it. And the ending that Eleanor and Park had was indeed heartbreaking. I haven't even moved on yet. That's where the deeper sense of love comes in. It won't last. It doesn't always last, but that doesn't mean that it was invalid or that it wasn't real. But a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts. That's why we are always taught to learn to treasure things, because it's not for forever. Honestly, Eleanor and Park tackled a lot of mature stuff into the novel, which is racism, discrimination, family problems, a lot of old people even experience. And the fact that Rainbow uh, was able to put that into a contemporary romance novel is just Eleanor and Park would still be my favorite for a very long time, even though a lot of critics say that it's just a mediocre, young love thing. It's so not good. The writing is hell. The thing that will always take me back to Eleanor and Park is that not everything lasts, and the lessons that come with the story, the things that you will feel in the novel it's priceless. You can actually feel that you were there. I would definitely recommend Eleanor and Park to those who just want to read for fun, because Eleanor and Park, it focuses more on the emotions and things that you will feel or the things that you will experience. Would definitely not recommend Eleanor and Park to those who want technical things and very what do you call that, meticulous when it comes to stories, very picky. Eleanor and Park isn't for people like that. Eleanor and Park are for those who feel the same way as them.